Obviously, the war in Iraq was a big, fat mistake. George Bush made a mistake. We can make mistakes, but that one was a beauty. We should have never been in Iraq. I want to tell you, they lied. Okay. They said there were weapons of mass destruction. There were none, and they knew there were none. There were no weapons of mass destruction.
All right.
Welcome back to Harbaugh. This weekend, Donald Trump became the first major Republican candidate ever for president to accuse former President Bush, George W. Bush, of waging war based on a lie. To neutralize the former president as a surrogate for his brother Jeb, Trump is reframing the debate for 2016 as a referendum on Iraq. Trump's not backing off, as he made clear yesterday.
We weren't safe. The World Trade Center came down, which was the greatest attack in history on this country. So you had that. You obviously had the war, which was a big mistake. I mean, I think few people would say the war in Iraq was a positive. You had him on the aircraft carrier saying all sorts of wonderful things, how the war was essentially over. Guess what? Not over. The whole thing starts with the war in Iraq. You know, Saddam Hussein was a bad guy. But one thing about him, he killed terrorists. Now Iraq is Harvard for terrorism. You want to become a terrorist, you go to Iraq.
Wow. After his rally with the former president last night, Jeb today said he thinks his brother's appearance helped him in South Carolina.
I think my brother is well respected. He led this country during turbulent times, and he did it well. And people in South Carolina appreciate that. It's great that he came, and I think it made a difference.
Well, I'm joined right now by Republican Congressman Mark Sanford of South Carolina, former Florida Republican Party Chair Al Cardenas, who's an advisor to Jeb Bush, and conservative columnist Ann Coulter, who supports Trump. I've got to start with Ann because I have no idea where you're headed here. Here we are back into the old fight over Iraq, and even further back, the fight over 9/11. How is this going to affect what happens on Saturday in the Republican fight in South Carolina, especially regarding Jeb and Trump? Ann.
Well, what he said specifically about Bush lying to get us into the war about weapons of mass destruction, yeah, of course, that made my head explode. But whether it's Bush's fault or Obama's fault for pulling out every last troop, as I believe, going forward, I do, and I think most Americans agree with Trump. Enough with the foreign wars. It didn't work. It's not working now. Again, whether it's Bush's fault or Obama's fault. And, you know, you watch these Republican debates, and at least for the first 5 of them, half of the debate is Republicans talking about the Quds and the Kurds. Can we get back to America?
The Quds and the Kurds. Thank you for the confusion there. Al Cardenas, thank you. You're a guy with Jeb. Is Jeb W? Would Jeb have taken us to Iraq? Would Jeb have done with all this neocon stuff? Would he have done all these wars?
I think Jeb's a lot like his dad. But I'll tell you.
I agree, by the way. But not like W.
Yeah, but I'm hearing Donald Trump. Here's a guy with a pretty significant lead in the party. And here's Rand Paul, who had to leave the race because people weren't buying into the libertarian approach to foreign policy in our party. I mean, in 2012, people thought Rand's point of view on foreign policy, my party, was pretty good. That's how the sequester came about. That's how we agreed on a sequester. Yeah. But here's Donald Trump following the lead of a guy who fell flat because the party's in a different mood regarding our foreign policy. Now, why in the world would Donald Trump begin talking about Syria, let Putin do it, about Iraq and everything else? The guy was in a commanding lead, and he's thrown the dice.
I don't know why he's taking a chance on knocking. He maybe wants to knock out. Anyway, let me go to Congressman Sanford. You know South Carolina, and you're not officially for anybody, but this looks to be, it really looked like a risky move by Trump to try to knock off Jeb on the issue of his brother's war. I mean, you have to go all the way back, and then going back to 9/11 and saying he didn't keep us safe. It looks like he's really, you know, this big casino. Why didn't he just roll the guy, as Al said, and beat him by 10 points, 20 points?
Again, I don't get it. I agree with Al. I mean, this is really rolling the dice, and one or two things is going to happen. I mean, he's going to win decisively in South Carolina, in which case, Katie bar the door. I think he goes all the way to win the nomination, given the things that he's said. I think it's going to be the reverse. Despite what the polls say right now, my take is that there's going to be blowback. That it's one thing to say something about, you know, a journalist in New York that people don't know that much about. It's another thing to say, hey, you knew 9/11 was coming and you did nothing about it. I mean, that goes to sort of the heart of American psyche, at least as it relates to South Carolina. What do we believe? What don't we believe? This stuff has long been discussed around the kitchen counter. And to throw that one out there, I mean, I think it's an incredibly risky maneuver.
On his radio show today, Rush Limbaugh compared Trump to liberal filmmaker Michael Moore. Here's Rush.
Here we are in a Republican primary, and Donald Trump, out of the blue, starts blaming the Bush family for 9/11, for knowing that the intelligence was made up, that there never were any weapons of mass destruction, and they knew it, Trump said. I mean, Michael Moore doesn't even say that.
Well, let me suggest something to you, Ann, and I think times have changed. People don't have a great feeling about the war in Iraq. We lost 4,000 people. A lot of people dismembered, changed for life for the worse. We're always talking about the veterans because of how badly they came home. A lot of these guys and women who were in for 4 or 5 deployments. That's another thing. The working class, regular guy and woman out there, they were going back and back and back, and the rich and the elite are saying, yeah, we don't mind that going on. That doesn't bother me. Well, why should it? I think people are mad about the trade deal. They're mad about illegal immigration, and they're mad about these deployments because there is a draft right now. It works this way. If you've enlisted, you go back in 4 or 5 times, and you have to. So I think there's some anger about the war now, about the whole war we went into. Your thoughts?
Yes, no, I agree. I think on 3 positions, trade, immigration, and foreign wars, Trump is illustrating how the Republican Party and the establishment has been forcing Republicans, the entire GOP, into taking suicidal positions. That is not where the American people are. And I have to say, I do think Trump is on much firmer ground and is making an important point, although not as well this time as he has in the past, about Bush being president when the 9/11 attack occurred. Look, 1 year before 9/11, in a debate with Al Gore, George Bush specifically raised racial profiling of Arabs at airport security. 1 year later, the ticket agent who took Muhammad Atta's ticket said he got a chill to the bone. He wouldn't give it to him, but he gave himself a politically correct mental slap. Trump has said in the past the reason 9/11 might well not have happened if I were president is those 19 hijackers wouldn't have been here. He's not enforcing politically correct rules. And by the way, Bush then went on to promote amnesty. We never had a vote on Bush after this, but we had a vote on Republicans in Congress, and Republicans were wiped out in 2006 because Americans don't want amnesty. Keeping the borders open, political correctness, and specifically no racial profiling of Arabs at airports. Yeah, actually, I think you kind of can say there's some partial blame there for Bush.
Okay, let me look at something here, and everybody. Last May, I spoke with Mike Morrell. He's the CIA official who briefed President George W. Bush during the run-up to the Iraq War. He was the guy that talked directly to the president about weapons of mass destruction, they're existing or non-existing. In our interview, I showed him something that Dick Cheney had said prior to the invasion. Here's that clip of what Cheney said and the interview with Morrell that followed. I think these are important.
And we believe he has, in fact, reconstituted nuclear weapons.
Was that true or not?
So we were saying...
Was that true?
We were saying...
Can you answer that question?
No,
was that true?
That's not true.
You're briefing the president on the reasons for war. They're selling the war, using your stuff, saying that you made that case when you didn't. So they're using your credibility to make the case for war dishonestly, as you just admitted.
Look, I'm just telling you...
Well, you just admitted it.
I'm just telling you what
they gave a false presentation of what you said to them.
On some aspects.
He had a nuclear weapon.
I'm telling you
that's
what we said.
That's a big deal.
Chris, I'm telling you what we said.
Do you agree? It's a big deal. They claimed they had a weapon when you know they didn't.
It's
you had no evidence. What do you make of that, Al? The guy who briefed the president said they didn't have a nuclear weapon. Cheney goes out and says they did.
Well, look,
maybe
Chris,
maybe lies is a strong word, but inconsistent is a powerful fact here.
Here's what I think. The next time we have Annenberg trials, I want you to be the prosecutor. But I think also, my sense is what's ruling foreign policy in the Middle East today is ISIS. And there's a universal accord that ISIS needs to get rid of. And I think the position Jeb and others have taken is you can't malign every country in the Middle East. You can't malign Muslims in general if you want to take out ISIS. Yeah. Americans' #1 goal in foreign policy is taking out ISIS. Everything Donald Trump has said runs counter to that theory. And that's why I think those who stay strong with that and those who have a sensible position about our allies in the Middle East will eventually win out.
Let's take a look at the latest opinion poll. It's coming out from South Carolina. Today shows Trump leading the field with 38%. Bush is in 4th at 10%, behind Ted Cruz and Marco Rubio. Let me ask you, Congressman Sanford, one tough question. Suppose in 2004, the person running for re-election was Barack Obama. And after 9/11, he had ran on the banner, he kept us safe, what would you have said?
I'd say beauty's in the eye of the beholder. And so if you live in...
He kept us safe after 9/11. You would have said that about Barack Obama. See, this is the way partisanship flips all around the world.
No, I didn't say no. I didn't say no, Chris.
No, but you laughed. You laughed me off.
Beauty was the eye of the beholder.
Yeah, I know, but I think that he kept us safe was a ballsy thing to say. Excuse me, after 9/11. Anyway, your last thought on that, Ann?
I disagree with both of you. I mean, I was totally for the war in Iraq. The weapons of mass destruction had nothing to do with it. Saddam had harbored terrorists, had sheltered terrorists. He had the first World Trade Center bomber he had given refuge to. I thought we had to take him out. I think it's completely on Obama's head that he withdrew every last troop. We have troops in Germany. We have troops in like 100 countries around the world. He couldn't leave a few troops behind. But going forward, I don't care. We can have seminars arguing about Iraq in the past.
Okay.
Right now, I don't want another war, and I think most Americans don't want another war. They want to take care of Americans first, and that's Trump.
Do you know how many casualties we suffered in Germany at the hands of the German people after VE Day? Yeah. Since 1945. How many casualties we suffered?
Oh, are you talking to me?
Yeah.
Oh, you mean like the werewolves afterward? There were some, not many.
Like none. Okay.
There were
so
a few,
it's
but there
not the
weren't
same
many.
as.
I agree. Look,
okay.
I agree. Going forward, I agree. People are done with it. We tried.
Yeah.
It didn't work. Whether it's because that whole area of the world, minus Israel, is a hellhole and there's nothing we can ever do to establish democracy, or whether it's Obama's fault or whether it's Bush's fault. Americans are done. We really want to care about bringing jobs home, bringing manufacturing home, and sealing the border.
Okay, thank you. And Coulter, I do get your point, and someday you got to codify all this. I'll have to read more of your books. Anyway, thank you, or some of them. Anyway, thank you. It's great having you on. Thank you. I think you speak for a lot of people, unfortunately. Anyway, Mark Sanford, thank you. Al Cardenas, my friend, and thank you, Ann Coulter, again, I think. Anyway, up next, with just 4 days left for the